Hey everybody, this video is I guess you could say my comments about, I won't say it's a review or a teardown because that's not really what it is. Maybe a pseudo review and pseudo teardown of a soldering station I picked up. I'll bore you with a story about this thing though before I crack it open. It's a Yihua 939D Plus. And I'll come back to that in a second. So I had a problem where I wanted to do some repair, some soldering of some electronic devices. I have a electric shaver that I broke, and I actually cover fixing that in a separate video. I have a couple other things. I have some batteries, packs I want to rebuild, you know, things like that. And I've had this ancient Radio Shack 40 watt soldering iron for 20 something years, and I've only used it a few times and I never really took care of it. I mean, it's got a hunk of solder in it. It still heats up barely, but I don't, you know, this really isn't it. And since I was like, okay, well, I can go buy another, and I did, because the Radio Shack's sadly going out of business, but partly because of their own mismanagement and other things outside of their control. But this isn't really good. I mean, it works. People do lots of work with them and they're fine, but I want to get something better. So I dug around and did some reading and watched a number of reviews. I saw Big Clive had a review on about the 936D, I think, which isn't a model that we can get in the United States, but based on what he had, and then there was, I think it's Todd from toddfun.com had a review of what it's the Circuit Specialist Premier 75 watt, which turns out is a rebadged version of this, and some other people who had Yihua soldering stations. I'm like, okay, well, I want to get one. So I dug around. I really didn't want to get the 936. So I ended up and I decided to get this one. Like I said, it's 939D Plus. And if you notice, I don't know if you can see it here too well in the box. I'll try to focus a bit real quick so you can see that somebody wrote the plus in by hand. And like, okay, whatever. You know, it is what it is. I mean, you know, this is the nature of the beast when you order something from China. So anyway, I have an odyssey of sorts. Not really too crazy, but just getting it and then having a problem with it and getting the problem fixed. You know, anytime you buy anything from eBay, you can do your due diligence, you can review the seller, you can look at whatever it is that you're trying to buy, and you can try to buy it and assume that everything's going to go well, but it's always a gamble. And in my case, there was a problem with it. You know, I got it, it powered on, everything was fine, but there was an issue where as it turns out, when I plugged up the soldering iron itself to the base unit, I got an error code. And I'd already seen from others that, other reviews and stuff, that, hey, there's a problem with it. And it turns out the heating element was broken. So contacted the seller. Of course, the seller's in China, or maybe Hong Kong, I think it's China. And they don't barely understand English. And there's this long back and forth about the problem is. And meanwhile, I'm like, okay, well, I started looking to say, well, what? I'm not confident that this person's going to be able to help me. Short of returning it, and they're going to have to charge a lot of money for shipping and all that. So the guy was nice, but he was trying to help me try and understand what the problem was so he could try to figure out how to fix it. And I was like, well, let me figure out what I can do about it. And there was, of course, the option of trying to buy a new iron. But I don't need a new iron. I just need a new heating element, because that was the problem with it. The heating element was broken. And it turns out, after digging around, and I'll show you. Let me see, I stuck it in here. The heating element, I pulled open the iron and noticed that it was broken in 2 pieces. And of course, this is not going to work. And that's why it's getting an error code. So I did some digging, and I'm not going to show you, but on here is the manufacturer. It's a Bakon, B-A-K-O-N, and in the part number C1321. And you know, one of the things that was frustrating is that I'd seen lots of advertisements on eBay and even on Amazon for replacement heating elements for the iron that came with this, but they were not right. They were clearly not this element. And you know, I found it. I even found the manufacturer. I found their page. Sadly, they didn't have anything on AliExpress, which is a site that is an extension of Alibaba. And because of that, I really didn't know what to do. I sent the link to what I needed back to the seller, but he couldn't do anything more for me other than say, hey, either you got to return it, you got to pay for shipping, or he says, how about I give you a partial refund? So he gave me $10 back, and on this was around $51. So he tried, and I accepted it, and I was fine. And it was funny because his last thing was, hey, hopefully this will cover the cost of you going to a local store and buying this. And I responded, I was like, well, look, we don't sell this in local stores. It's only in your country of China. Sorry. Anyway, I found it, and the problem is that if you go through Alibaba, because you could buy it there, you got to buy like 20 of them. Well, I don't need 20 replacement heating elements. That doesn't do me any good. So I discovered the phenomenon known as Taobao, which is an eBay-like site, but it's only in China, and it's owned by Alibaba. And it's kind of like eBay, but their focus isn't so much on auctions. Their focus is more on just direct sales. So I went through a Taobao agent, and you can go and read about all this stuff. It's Taobao is the actual site, and they sell across the world, and it's really, somebody wants to buy from China direct, that is the way to go. And if you speak Chinese or know someone who speaks Chinese, you can really buy a lot of stuff there. You can cut out all the middleman and all those sorts of things. So it's something worth looking at. And Taobao agents are sites usually that they will handle things for you for nominal fees. Sometimes they can get extreme, but you do pay for the convenience, so there is that plus to paying the price. Anyway, long story short, I went through an agent. I got 3 replacement elements. I figured I'd go ahead and instead of just buying one, I'll buy 2 or 3 because, as everybody knows, even the Chinese manufacturers have knockoffs, which are also in China. So in this case, just to compare real quick, and I don't know if you can really see pretty well. Let's see if I can get it in here. Focus in a little tighter. It's, you know, you can already tell the difference between the original, which is definitely made by Bacon, and this one, which doesn't even have the manufacturer symbol or anything. You know, the polish is clearly this plastic of this element is not the same. The pins are not as nice and finished as well. But okay, it is what it is. So hopefully, I wasn't sure when I got them that it worked, but after some wrangling to get it to fit inside the iron, I turned it on and my air code went away, and I heated it up, set a temperature, and it warmed up fine and worked. So I was pretty happy with that. So long story short, eBay buyer failure, it happens, or seller failure, however you want to put it. And I still managed to, albeit with some inconvenience and a few weeks of waiting for something to get shipped from China and some heavy-duty searching on the internet, I found and got my replacement part and got what I needed. So now let's talk about the thing, now that I've bored everybody to tears. This is the unit, and well, this is the box, now it's all packed. You know, it's supposed to have the soldering iron, and so here's the soldering iron, and it is packed fine. I do find it funny, like you can read some of the English, of course. In some cases, they can't even spell things like, you don't get quality, you get quilty. And I'm not going to make fun of people who don't speak our language simply because I can't speak their language well either, and I'm sure I would be just as terrible as they would be. So it's just amusing to see that. Some of their mistakes are quite funny. And then, of course, this is the iron. It's a 907K. It's listed as ESD safe, and it had a problem. One of the other things, of course, is you get this stand. And I'm not really going to go into detail too much about what it is, but because there's, like I said, there's other reviews that are much more thorough of this unit and it's, I'll put links so you can see for yourself to the CSI Premier 75W, which for 75 watt, and so you can compare yourself and see, other than maybe a couple of minor things, this unit is exactly the same as that. I mean, there's just absolutely no difference. They just silk screened CSI here, and everything else from what I can see is exactly the same. The function's the same and all that. One other thing I didn't get was, and if you've looked at some of the other reviews of the CSI unit and other things, I can get the blue sponge. All right, whatever. Also didn't get instructions. The instruction booklet was kind of annoying, but I don't, yeah, it's okay. Because all you have to do is go to CSI's site and print out their manual, and there you go. You've got the exact same manual for this unit, and it's in English, and it's all fine. So I'll talk real quick about some of the things in here. There is, of course, the base unit. It's pretty nice and solid. It's compact. It's got a switch, nice plug. Actually, I like the way it looks. It's pretty decent. And then you got this unit. It's nice and solid. It's got 2 rubber feet. I really don't care about this thing, and I agree with, I think Todd had said it in his review on the CSI one, that this stuff isn't that good, and you got this rosin, and it doesn't work out too well. Obviously, I'll keep it, but I'm not going to use it because, just like most other people, I have the Hako, which is an excellent cleaner, and I strongly recommend it. It's pretty good. The iron is pretty cool. It's nice. I haven't had any problems with it. One of the reasons why I like this, of course, better than, say, one of these all-in-one single temperature is it's shorter. Now you might say, okay, well, why is that good? Well, you get more control. I mean, I'm here. This is more like a pen, and I can hold it, and I can focus real good on like a single spot or something, and that, you know, that makes a difference. You want that level of control. Well, meanwhile, I'm further away. I've got a long bit of distance between where I'm at and here. Now, I'm not saying you can't use it. Quite the contrary, lots of people have done good work with it. But that was a consideration that's very nice. So, like I said, you get the unit. It's pretty cool. One of the things that others pointed out, and it isn't just this stand with this model. This stand, Yihua uses it. Others, it's a fine. It puts in here. So yeah, you know, I have this stand, and it's pretty nice. It's solid, and you know, you have this thing. Yeah, it's worth pulling off because, like, if you put your iron in here and you're trying to reach in and grab it, you don't want this thing there. I agree with Todd on that one. It's silly to have it there. One of the nice things about this one is, and it's when it sits in there, the tip won't touch, which I think is important because if it's touching, well, it can drain heat from your iron, and then of course it can heat this thing up. And that's kind of ruins your heating up. When you're doing work, it can cause a problem. So it's a 8-pin, I think, 478, and which is a little different. The base unit has some nice things. You've got your 3 channels, which others discuss. You can, in other reviews, they discuss this. You know, there's 3 separate temperatures, like presets, and you can adjust and all that. One thing I completely agree about, they have this this recovery graph for the temperature, and it's like, why do you have this here? It is useless. One thing that was pointed out, other people made a comment. They said that they didn't understand why these things here. You have Celsius, Fahrenheit, auto sleep, auto shut off, and temp correct. And what those represent, there actually is I'm actually happy to have them on here. They represent the button functions that as you go through, what they are. So I'm going to plug it in real quick so you can see that. Hang on a second. Let me do that. All right, so I plugged it in. I'm going to turn it on. And, you know, like I said, you've got your presets. It's showing an error code because I don't have anything attached. You'll see it here in a second. And I have this light, and it's kind of bright, so you can't really see too well, but it's showing a 5E. And I've got mine set to Fahrenheit, and I'm on channel 1, but you can switch the different presets. Hitting this button, the first press, which is the first thing here, you then change, the F starts flashing so that you can change to Celsius, or you can switch back to Fahrenheit, whichever temperature scale you want. You hit it again, and then it starts flashing here, which is the auto sleep. And again, I'm not going to describe those functions. You can go look at the other review for all this. But the point behind this is actually kind of a little bit handy. It's a nice little reference to know that, albeit once you use it, you're going to know what this stuff is anyway. If you haven't, it's there, and yeah, okay, I can see it. I don't know how useful it will be over time, but it's fine. Apart from that, I like the control. I think it's very nice. I don't have any problems with it. I like the presets. I think it's pretty solid. I don't think it's a bad unit. So there's a few things that you have to check with this. Let me turn this off and unplug it. One of the things I've seen in some of the reviews is you want to check to see if you've got, I'm going to go ahead and plug it in, the iron, but I don't have it turned on. You want to check to make sure that the iron itself goes directly to ground. I think that's for the ESD safe label. So if you go and hit continuity and you test from ground to the tip, you should get a nice, lovely continuous circuit, meaning that you know that the tip is grounded. And that's a good thing. The other thing, and I'm going to crack it open in a second, is to say that the grounds, you got to watch these units, because the ground and the base unit, sometimes they solder the ground, and they're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to be crimped. And we're going to take a look at this one in a minute, and I've already looked at it, but it actually isn't. It actually is soldered. It's not crimped, so I'm going to have to fix that. That's a pretty simple fix. One other thing, and I'll point this out about this stand, is that, you know, they have these holes, and the manual, the way it describes it, it says something along the lines of you're supposed to, you can put tools here. So, you know, some people are thinking they could put their tips there. You know, you can actually put a screwdriver in there. Well, it's probably not the best for that one, but like if you have a smaller one, like say like a little one, yeah, okay, I can kind of see that a bit. I mean, you know, all right, I don't really think that works too well in all cases, but yeah, I really kind of think they're useless. They don't hurt anything, but I mean, I guess you could put something in there. Whatever. But all in all, it's still, this stand's not too bad as long as you understand, you know, you pull this thing off, and since I'm using this Hako, and I'm going to put it here, I don't care. I'm going to keep this open. So this stand's fine. I like the fact that it's nice and metal and solid, and it's got, you know, really nice rubber feet on the bottom. I think that's pretty good. So, all right, I'm going to take this thing open and show you the ground and the problem with it, and so you can see it. And then we'll come back later on, and we're going to talk about tips. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. I took there's 4 screws that hold it here. I pulled those out. Take the top off. It's not, you know, it's pretty decent. Here's the thing I wanted to show you though. If you notice here, of course, the ground is soldered, and well, that's not good. Apart from that, actually, I'm not going to pull this out, but I looked at it some, and I looked at it with a magnifying glass, and it's actually pretty good. The transformer looks really nice. The soldering, from what I can tell, looks pretty solid. They even have here, some of the units don't have this, but they actually have the switch is actually fused, which is pretty cool. So I think that's not bad. They have pretty good strain relief. You know, it's clamped down nice and tight. This is the only thing that seems to be a problem. And it's just what they did because it's quick and fast and easy, I guess. I don't believe that, but hey, whatever. So I've got a couple of crimps, and I'm going to crimp it and take it apart. Take this off, cut the wires, strip them, crimp them, put it back on, and do it properly. I'll be back in a second. All right, so I crimped I cut the terminal to the soldered, and then I stripped and crimped and screwed it in real nice and all that. And then one thing, of course, I'm going to check to make sure is that it's still grounded well, and it is grounded quite well. So feel pretty good about that. That's really about it on this. Like I said, there's nothing else that really you need to worry about other than, you know, it's what you would expect from a inexpensive Chinese unit. But I'm actually, at least from this standpoint, pretty happy. It's just that one thing was the only problem with it. So I'm going to go ahead and put it back together, put the top on. One thing of note here is, you know, they have the made in China and all that stuff. And then of some interest, they have, there's a sticker on the back, and it's, I'm assuming this is their, you know, hey, we're not this is not a fake unit sticker. It's a QR code. I've kind of removed it a little bit just accidentally, but it's called Scratch. It's like one of those scratch things for the lottery or something like that, you know. And it says scan QR code, check authenticity, you know, Guangzhou Yihua Electronic Equipment Company Limited. So I'm assuming that this is a way for people to go and to make sure that what they have is a legitimate unit, that they don't have a knockoff, which is kind of, you know, it's kind of amusing. And yeah, so that's really about it for that. It goes together pretty well, and there's not really a big deal with it. I'll put this together and I'll be back in a second. All right, I got the unit back together. Everything tested out fine. I just double checked it all just to make sure everything worked. One of the other things is, you know, you talk to, well, you read reviews, you know, comments online, videos, etc., and they say, you know, the problem is most of the tips you get, and I get this. Makes a lot of sense. Tips you get with the irons, usually they're too small. You know, you want something, you don't want a point, you want a chisel tip. And I did some reading and research on this and found that these are compatible with certain Hako tips, and the Hako tips are well regarded and have high quality. So one of the things about this was, I'm like, all right, well, let me pick up some Hako tips, and of course they're expensive, comparatively speaking. I mean, these things, Yihua ones are cheap, and others that fit them. But I found on Amazon a seller who was legitimate, and they sell an assortment, and it's a lot cheaper to buy the assortment, even though you may not use them all, but it was a good deal. And these are actual genuine Hako tips, and all the reviews made it really clear they were. And one of the things that's nice about this is they do indeed fit. I've tried it already. I'll show you again though. This is a small tip. And you know what's nice is with this one is you unscrew this. This is like the sleeve that holds it. This is the Yihua tip. It's a little longer than the Hako, but it doesn't matter. The diameter is what really matters. The Hako, you can see the Hako has the walls seem to be a little thicker, I guess. Maybe that's part of it. It's going to hold its heat longer, which is pretty good. So put the Hako on. It fits, of course, the way it's supposed to. You put the sleeve on that, and that's all it takes to swap out the heating element or the tip. And that's nice. I won't pull it completely open, but just to make the point, one other final thing about this is, and well, before I go to that, it's like, you know, there's other tips, and these are all chisel tips, except for pretty much this small one, which is pretty much a point, honestly. So they're all, it's nice, it's a good assortment. You can find it on Amazon. Just make sure that you're getting Hako tips, because they have knockoffs, but these are definitely Hako tips. I mean, their packaging is very clear that they're made in Japan and all that. And you can certainly feel the difference. I mean, they're, like I said, they're heavier and have more metal, which means it take a little bit longer for them to heat up, just a tiny bit. But the flip side is they're going to hold their heat a lot better. And since they're thicker, they're probably going to last longer, I would guess. I don't know. Not sure about that. The other thing is, which is nice about this whole problem I have with the heating element being broken and the unit I got from eBay did point out one nice thing, because most of the other irons I've seen, they don't have this replaceable plug-in heating element. And in fact, Bakon, if you translate their marketing material about this, or sales, you know, dribble on their site, they advertise this as a feature, and it is kind of nice. They're like, look, you just grab another element, you unscrew this, you unscrew you unscrew this, you pull this out. I'm not going to do it. And then there's this one thing. It's the grounding spring that's hooked up to the grounding line that grounds the tip here. And you pull that out, and then you can pull the element out, put another one in if it, I guess, goes bad, and then screw everything back together and turn it back on and hook everything back up and you're fine. And that actually, I think, is pretty cool. I don't know how often that happens, but I guess if you're in a production environment, you know, working at the factory in China for pennies to nothing, that you're gonna, you know, put together an iPhone, you're going to, maybe you do burn through these things a lot. I don't know. But anyway, I found that to be an interesting feature, and I think it's something that's actually pretty cool. So, I don't really have anything else to say about this. Like I said, this is just kind of just comments and thoughts and things about this. Pretty happy with it all. I like the unit. It sure beats this. I mean, it just does. Again, that's my opinion. That's just what I think. Like the fact that you can get the tips. It's too bad nobody sells these here. Maybe CSI does, but I looked on their site. They didn't have anything that looked like this. And I don't know that their version of this iron is the same as what I got with this. I do know that one other thing to point out is you can't find this very much. It wasn't very common on eBay. I only saw like 2 listings, and the other one seemed to be a little more suspicious, though. Maybe if I picked that one instead, it wouldn't have had a broken element. I don't know. You know, like I said, it's gambling. It's kind of luck of the draw sometimes on eBay, unless you personally know the seller. But that's about all I have to say about it, and thanks for watching.